Hello, Habibtis, Habibis, and Habib and Bees. Welcome to another stream episode, whatever, of this exchange. And I just want to start off by saying we're not good. We're just not good. Everything sucks. The ceasefire is just not a ceasefire. It's turning into the same way that Oslo just kept enabling oppression in like smaller dosages. So yeah, we want to talk about that.
Yeah, a good comrade of ours has been calling it a change fire, which I thought was very apt. Like actually just referring to it in conversation, no matter who she's talking to, as a change fire. And I think that's the kind of energy and specification that we need. And I also had moments like this, especially this week, where the numbers really came out and smacked me in the face, where I realized 120 Palestinians have been murdered since the change fire came into effect. 120 Palestinians. Israel has broken the ceasefire over 1,000 times. If you were looking at this number, 120 people murdered in any other context, you'd have a completely different reaction. It's a mass murder. They're massacres. And today, like an hour ago, my friend Marah in Gaza, her 3-year-old cousin was murdered. He was shot in the chest by a quadcopter. He was an orphan. His father had been murdered in October of 2023, and his wife is now left having lost her husband and her 3-year-old baby.
His name was Amjad Abed. And he was someone's whole world.
So we just needed to start off bringing that to light, because we hear about these things, we hear about these numbers, and we hear 120 people, and that's a massacre, but one person is a massacre. And I think even those of us who are accustomed to fighting for the cause understand it as fighting for the cause sometimes, and not necessarily fighting for the lives of every single person. And we want to just take a minute to ground and remember that we're fighting for every single person.
I just want to say, yes, we are not numbers. The way the world views us is even less than numbers. But if we do want to talk about numbers, the outrage over fake 40 beheaded babies led and enabled a genocide, and this was propaganda reiterated by the most powerful person on the planet. Well, right now we have actual dead babies. We have 15,000 of them. And
15,000 who are even accounted for.
yeah. And if you do not see the insane amount of dehumanization towards Palestinians and the Jewish supremacy in the context of this conversation, then you just don't want to see it. You do not count Palestinians as people. You do not see them as people. And I think you were telling me about how in the subway, maybe you want to share.
Yeah. I was having this experience literally the minute I walked out of work, and I say this, I don't talk about spirituality in a lot of ways, but there are of course spiritual currents, and I don't have to get deep into it, but my friend Marah and we have a lot of kind of spirituality and currents running between us, and we often really know when things are wrong or when things are good. And I walked out of my office today, and I was just hit in the face with this sense of panic. I had a pit in my stomach. I didn't really know where it came from. I went down in the elevator. 2 minutes later, I looked at my phone, and she texted me at that moment to say her 3-year-old baby cousin had been murdered. And so I got on the subway, and at first I was kind of shaking, and then I started crying. And once you've kind of abandoned the social contract the way that we have, when you realize what the social contract caters to, you don't really care about crying in public. It doesn't really make a difference. But I started to realize that I was trying not to cry. And then I wondered why I was trying not to cry when I had just heard the worst thing I'd ever heard in my life. And it was one of a million worst ever things I'd ever heard in my life over the past year and a half. And I was looking around, and it's striking to me, being in Germany, that when you're crying on the subway, no one will say, "Are you okay?" Because even in New York, which is a very cold and impersonal place in a lot of ways, someone always asks. On the other side of that, I always ask. But whenever I've cried in the streets of New York, like, someone has always just asked, "Are you okay? Do you need something?" So no one asked because we're in Germany. But I started imagining what I would say if someone asked, "Are you okay?" And I started formulating what I would say, just playing out this hypothetical in my head, and realizing that I would say, "No, I'm not okay. My friend's baby cousin was just murdered. He was shot in the chest." And I was kind of trying to play out what someone's reaction could be, because it is too horrifying for words. It's beyond description. And then I imagined them asking for more context, and the second it would come out that it was a Palestinian or that it was someone in Gaza, I could see this hypothetical person's face, or multiple people, the way people's expressions just kind of click into place, and they sit back a little bit and they go, "Oh, okay, well," and then the context is changed, and they justify to themselves that they don't really need to have an emotional reaction because it doesn't count. Because it doesn't count. And this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with such a degree of dehumanization that people can justify an adult man or woman, feminism, yes. Women can be genociders too, yeah. And they are. Soldier looking at a baby with soft skin and the way a baby's head smells when they're a baby, and pulling a trigger and shooting them in the heart, and they can hear that story and they can say, "Well, okay."
Because that's what Palestinians do. That is the image of Palestinians. They die. They are okay to die. It's acceptable for them to die. We, even like in this society, when we say Palestinians are not viewed as humans, it is a reflection of the truth. We see this on the street. When you're just pro-Palestine, you become less valuable. You have less rights. You are allowed to be beaten by cops. When you just by voicing your support for Palestine, you become less of a human in the eyes of the state. Can you imagine what kind of I mean, Yoav Gallant literally said it. They do not view Palestinians as humans. He called Palestinians human animals. And these descriptions are the same descriptions that lead to genocide consistently. When people in power who control the lives of an entire population start to say that these people are uncivilized, that these people are animals, that these people are rodents, this is when genocide becomes permissible. And to say, this is what fucks me up so much here about this whole conversation about fascism and how fascism is grown, which is something that we wanted to talk about. This whole conversation about fascism and like, yeah, we have to fight fascism here. Yeah, you have to fight fascism here, but you cannot fight fascism here while at the same time supporting a fascist ethno-state, suppressing and controlling the entire lives of an entire population, and literally calling them lesser humans, lesser beings, and continuing to genocide them. You cannot have it both ways.
And I think this is something that people have really neglected, is this crossover between fascism and settler colonialism, because you have the Eurocentric definition of fascism, like whatever, people can call me out for this or not, I but you have the definition of fascism as it manifested with the Nazis, as the AfD, as the fascists in the AfD are manifesting it. But fascism doesn't need to look exactly uniform every single time it arises. And saying that you are ready to fight fascism here while having no objection to, as Karam said, a government that is ravaging and annihilating a population. In recently, I've tried to not be really harsh, and I've tried to just kind of have productive and fruitful outreach. And even in what I post, it's really difficult, but I want to contribute, and part of contributing is also identifying how you can be most productive in reaching people and creating change. But it's hard. It's really fucking hard not to look at this paradigm and think about how goddamn lost people are. It just is. That's my feeling. And when you see now people in the US, and we'll go on to talk about this, looking at the kidnapping and threatened deportation of Mahmoud Khalil, and saying, it doesn't matter what your stance on Palestine and Israel is, you should be worried because this is happening at home and it's time for you to fight fascism. This is about your stance on fascism. That is such unbelievable, sick, depraved cognitive dissonance. I'm sorry, like I don't want to alienate people, but also like I don't know, I've been made to feel like I don't want to alienate people. That is the bottom line. It is fucking depraved not to be able to make that connection. And it's dystopian in this sense that we've reached this point where we're having this conversation, and the more time that we spend in the movement and the longer this goes on, and the more we reach these new heights of terror, the more glaringly obvious it becomes, and the more devastating and bewildering it is that people haven't caught up. I mean, they haven't caught up. They're only spitting out more hatred and more bigotry and more normalization and whitewashing of these crimes to suit Western narratives. It only matters as long as it happens in the US.
Yes, but it is extremely selfish.
Yeah.
You are, like, what these people are saying is, oh my God, it has reached, it reached home, while at the same time, colonialism, supporting settler colonialism, and an, an objectively very, very right wing. I'm not even going to say fascist, you can call it fascistoid or whatever the fuck the definition is. This government, the Israeli government, and the state of Israel as a settler colony requires a continuation of dehumanization. And the fact that this dehumanization is coming back home, fascism and colonialism are two sides of the same coin. You cannot support one and object to the other. Because if you do, it is just selfishness, is what you're saying. You're saying, as long as I'm not oppressed, they can oppress whoever the fuck they want.
Well, of course, what it is at the core is just structures of supremacy. It's white supremacy. Like, I felt so. Because what is it? When do we prioritize fighting when it affects white people? That is the only thing these people are saying. And I think as such, we need to react and call that out very specifically. And I mean, so what's interesting about this is that it's white supremacy. It also is exactly the same narrative of hypotheticals and self-victimization that is employed in Jewish supremacy.
Yes.
So, and my very close comrade called, not called me out, but posted something where I was like, oh my God, this is enlightenment, and I'm going to share it also. But this is really important because the narrative around you need to fight because this is here now. Who is it affecting now? Who is it affecting in the US? It's affecting people of color. It's affecting Palestinians. It's not affecting the white people who see it happening. They are creating their own victimization, watching it happen and saying, oh, it matters because it could happen to me. It's really the same structure of supremacy in that pure form as in Jewish supremacy, when Jews said, this happened to me, and in some hypothetical, fantastical future that I am creating, there's another Holocaust against Jews because of this, this, and this. And the fact is, there is a Holocaust taking place against Palestinians right now. So it's this combination of supremacy, white supremacy, Jewish supremacy, combined with profound dehumanization, which of course at the core of it is the fundament, the foundation of genocide and of oppression. And I want to share, because I had posted a few days ago, I posted a few things about what's going on in the US and that this Palestinian was kidnapped and disappeared by the secret police. I mean, if you want to talk about fascism in a Marxist sense, the way we've been conditioned to think that we can only talk about it in this form, or else, the Marxist police is going to show up but if you actually want to go with that definition, it's literally happening in the US. Like those are literal fascist tactics. Yeah. So I posted, a bit about that, and then I said, you are next. And the way that I was posting this and thinking about it was very much like kind of a release of energy, and also quite a bit of rage at people in my life who I know, including family members who are sitting around and not doing anything. It wasn't a statement as in it doesn't matter what's happening now, but it will happen because you're the next one and then it will happen then. I'm aware of these dynamics, but it does perpetuate harmful narratives. So I posted it, and then I saw that a very close comrade of mine had posted basically a critique of the "you are next" thing in response to the fact that it's literally happening right now to trans people, Palestinians, leftists, standing in solidarity with Palestine. And he wrote, the "you are next" narrative attempting to build power behind trans people and immigrants is pissing me off right now. Let's look what's happening right now and decide that we will collectively and selflessly fight for those who the state is attempting to eradicate right before our fucking eyes. Often we can better grasp the oppression of others when we internalize it and relate it to our own oppression. So do that, internalize it, but don't externalize it. The self-centeredness needs to stop once you viscerally grasp the realities of those the state is attempting to erase. It should be more than enough for you that trans people and immigrants are under severe attack by fascism, with even more profound attacks lingering ahead. It is your responsibility to make capacity and take action. And then the last bit is any of us could be next. Okay, yes, but also let's be fucking real. We know who is literally going to be next. The administration is making this clear. They're telling us. Your time to may very well come, but today, tomorrow, you need to fight for the right reasons.
Yeah. White people do not need to fight because they might also end up being oppressed. Wow, okay. That is a magic light. Yeah. That should not be the reason for white people to fight. White people, because the clinics are closing, because help is being blocked for many people. And like they're literally like what we're seeing in the US, first off, is actually like because Trump and the Republicans used Viktor Orban tactics to kind of make to kind of change US laws and stuff like that. So it's not just heading towards fascism. We're here. Fascism made a comeback, or whatever, resurgence. Fascism came back, and right now we are in fascism. And instead of saying, oh yeah, I want to stop fascism here because it might affect me, maybe we should say, hey, I want to stop fascism because it's already affecting other people. Should not be out of self-centric reasons. You should want to help people not be deported. Like, I don't know why empathy is such a rare, like it feels like it's rare goods. Like, oh no, I need to convince white people that they might be next in order for them to help me. What if they are never next? It's a white supremacist structure. What if they are never next? Does that mean they shouldn't be on our side? Like, it's weird.
Yeah, when you turn it around like that is the bottom line. And I'm just remembering, this is a really dumb anecdote, but it's really, it's relevant. 9 years ago, oh my God, 9 years ago, I was living in New York, and I went on a truly horrendous date with some guy in finance. And I was sitting down with him, and Trump was about to be elected. Yeah, I moved in 2016. Yeah, I moved to New York in 2016. Trump was about to be elected, and he started telling me how, because I worked in finance, I should be happy that Trump was going to be elected because it would be good for me tax-wise. And I was looking at him dumbfounded, trying to explain the ways in which it would affect everyone else. And I was at such a loss. And even then, like, I was like such a lib back then. Like, I didn't have any awareness, except that my father had raised me to understand that you need to fucking care about other people. And when other people are being bullied or attacked or oppressed, I mean, he trained me as to how to stand up to people who are more senior to you, older than you, in positions of power. We would practice this at home. We would practice how to, speak truth to power, kind of. And, and I'd feel the, like, blood pumping in my veins. And I felt it when I was sitting and looking at that fucking asshole. And I just had this over and over, like, circling in my head over and over. I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about other people. I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about other people. And I just, like, over the past 10 years, I've returned to that moment and that line, the way that it just ran through me and pounded like a heartbeat. Because how do you teach that? How do you explain that to someone if it isn't enough? If it isn't the bottom line that you should care about other people, point. Not because, not when, not if, but just you should. Then how do you really get any farther?
You need to teach empathy to people who, I don't know how, but they somehow lack it. I mean, I do know how, because capitalism makes us hyper-individualists and makes us focus on ourselves and is like, nach mir die Flut, so after me, everybody can go, they can alle verrecken. I don't know how to say this in English. But yeah, this is what capitalism does. It makes us, but still, like, capitalism doesn't work in your family. Maybe you need to I don't know, re-educate yourself. Sounds very weird to say re-educate. It's been 10 days now, over 10 days. And Israel is blocking humanitarian aid from, like, cutting off 2.3 million people from humanitarian aid. And
food.
And food.
And they're destroying water sources as well.
Yeah.
That's also happened in the last week.
And also they're cutting electricity, so the salination plants do not work. The ones that still that have not yet been bombed. So this is, to your point, like, how do you teach empathy? I think any empathetic person should clearly see that this is a genocide, that the intent is to destroy a whole population in whole or in part. And this is my point. If you do not see this as a genocide, then you need to learn empathy. And I do not know where to start with this.
On the other hand, because I want to bring this around to maybe some slightly more positive, not because rage is righteous and the tragedy and like devastation and all of this continues, but I also want to share what I've just been seeing lately, which is genuinely deeply positive. We do see a different world now than we were living in a year and a half ago. That is due to the fact that all of these super extreme far-right governments have come to power and that we're on the rise of fascism. But at the same time, Palestine has awoken a mass global movement. We're not going back. Palestine will continue to be on the radar. I've even seen fewer and fewer people saying, you know, I see people forgetting about Gaza. I don't see people forgetting about Gaza. I know the bubble that we're in, and I know that, you know, who we're talking to, but the bubble has gotten way, way bigger, and people have radicalized. People have pushed forward. People are recognizing narratives of normalization and liberal Zionism, which is fantastic because people that is representative of people having pushed through trillions of dollars of propaganda, intended for them to make them Zionists, and they're pushing past the point not just of Zionism and supporting the state of Israel, but they're pushing past the point of normalization and liberal Zionism, and I'm seeing that very distinctly, and it is deeply heartening. And I think when you take the time to see how much things have changed and also how desperate all of these forces of evil really are, the concessions that they're now having to make, which are huge despite the horrors that they continue to perpetrate, you really see the trajectory that we're on and how much hope there actually is. And, you know, we said all of these things like mantras that, you know, Palestine will be...
Audio is shitty, you get cut off.
How could... Look at how nice this thing is. How could audio be shitty?
I mean, we can see that the audio is, like, doing stuff. Can you tell us if the audio is back or not?
Is it better if we're closer to the mic?
Oh my god. We need I don't know what we need.
I don't know what we need. I mean, we need clearly something else, but I don't know what it is. All right, I guess we're just going to keep talking. I can talk a little bit louder. Let us know in the chat if it's getting better. I don't really remember the point I was making, but...
You were saying it's all still positive because the bubble is growing.
Yeah. I mean, that's really it, that we do see... just that... Okay, it's fine there. Right, we've said all these things like mantras that Palestine will be free, that we will see a free Palestine in our lifetimes, that we will achieve liberation. And once you really internalize that it is a marathon and that that's not just a, phrase we use to reassure ourselves in the face of nothing happening, but rather that we see change, but it occurs over significant periods of time, then you also start to notice it occurring over significant periods of time. And I really do return to that first demo at Potsdamer Platz in October of 2023, once we'd kind of broken through the demo ban, or we started breaking through the demo ban. We're in a very different political moment, and there is a different global political consciousness.
Yeah.
Did we talk about the Oscars?
No, we did not talk about the
Okay.
Oscars. I just want to put it out there just as a prediction to what's going to happen in the next 20 years. We're going to have fascism, which, I mean, we already do. At some point, we're going to have, inshallah, fingers crossed, resistance to fascism. And then maybe we end up in a more just society where the topic of Palestine is non-negotiable. Like, it's not a card that the left uses to either put pressure or like is willing to abandon to gain power, like it is right now. And once this happens, I think in the next 20 years we will have a free Palestine, and we will do the stream from my grandfather's house in Haifa. And yeah, I truly believe this, and this is gonna happen. So stay tuned, Yani. Exchange is staying for 20 years.
Oh God, that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh.
Inshallah. Okay, now we need to talk about...
we need to talk about the Oscars.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about this so much, and everyone talked about it so much. But of course, the topic, and the reason why it's coming up is because part of what I talked about and what was so striking is that the Oscars and the whole narrative around the normalization was so present. And it was really broadly present. Like, I saw this everywhere. And I did a collab with Michael Schertzer, who made a video about liberal Zionism in the context of the Oscars and this film. It's a great, you should watch it. It's a very like structured and interesting kind of, it leads you through all of these concepts.
Shout out Mikey B.
And in the comments, this was so wild. There were hundreds, if not thousands, it circulated really well. There were hundreds, if not thousands of comments with so many people, like more than 99% of comments being, thank you for calling us out. I completely understand what you're saying. And then, adding on to the analysis. Or there were a lot of comments of people saying, I watched this and I knew something was wrong. And it felt really wrong to me, but I couldn't name exactly what it was. Thank you for calling this out. Now I know. That is so powerful. That is the fact that, first of all, Palestine is not you can't ignore it now. You have to relate to it if you're politically active and if you're not politically active. But certainly if you're political in any way or trying to be like within the left, you have to have some relationality to Palestine. And then it's also a result of people paying attention and people, actually very notably so, developing their own analysis and their own line of thinking to be able to come to the point of watching this very, very clear instance of normalization. I mean, just textbook. The BDS statement on it is also like incredibly clear and breaks down everything.
Yeah.
And BDS is not even like, radical in the way that like, BDS has a very, very clear
international law
exactly
structure.
And they have a very clear what's the word I'm looking for? Like they have a clear goal.
Guidelines.
And all of that. And they call it out very, very anyway. It's a really clear instance of normalization, and people really saw that. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, and that happened in a year and a half.
Yeah, and just like to emphasize how awesome this is that everybody was able to catch out that there's something wrong. It's Palestine being on the biggest stage of like whatever film production industry, and still while on this stage, instead of just being hyped and like, oh, this is such a positive thing, seeing the instance where this turns from a positive thing to something that is actually damaging to the movement because it equates victim and perpetrator in a very like extremely white colonial narrative.
Jewish
Yeah.
supremacist narrative.
Jewish supremacist
the
narrative.
best example of it.
Yeah, like literally, this is what white colonialists did. Like, oh yeah, look, Thanksgiving and stuff. We're all eating together.
my God.
This is like the Thanksgiving of the Palestine cause. Like this, it's weird.
It's true. So there are a few points on this, and I kind of want to lay this out because it is really interesting. First of all, the fact that it was there at all, the fact that Palestine was visible at the Oscars, is a result of the mass movement, and it is a result of the pressure from below. It is. So that in itself, like I don't even know if you'd call it, like I don't need to call it a success. It just is the truth that this movement has grown to be such a global mass movement that it is beyond the point of being able to be ignored, even by these iconic ruling class institutions, which are very, very Zionist.
Yeah.
Because Zionism, is all of those things. It is supremacist, and it's all, So the fact that it was there at all meant that they were under pressure to do something around it. But the thing that they did was dictated and framed by this heavily Zionist institution in a way that they knew wouldn't be a threat. And you saw this because the Jew that they put up on stage to put the kosher stamp and babysit the Palestinian, God forbid a Palestinian could stand on the stage and tell his own goddamn motherfucking story without having his hand held and his diaper changed by a Jewish Israeli.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Is due to the fact that the Israeli they picked was not a threat to the narratives, because he said, what did he say? Our lives
are intertwined.
Our fates are intertwined. That was really the richest thing, because, let's think about that for a second. Why are your lives intertwined? Maybe because your people are genociding his people, you unbelievable fucking supremacist clown. What the fuck?
No. But like their lives are intertwined. Yes, Habibi, you're being haunted by the ghost of my grandfather in the house that you stole from my grandfather. Of course, our lives are intertwined.
Our lives are intertwined. You're occupying the land that he's fighting for and calling yourself friends, and it's okay because you're holding his hand at the Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Yuval did some good. This is the point that really annoys me, because Yuval did some really good shit on AI. He did some really good reports that I have literally quoted in my streams before. But just to think that someone who gets to the bottom, like his job is to get to the bottom of the truth, comes out and equates victim with perpetrator and claims, like, not even, it's like, yes, our lives are intertwined. You are living on my land. I don't, like, what the fuck?
My people will only be safe if Bessel's people are safe. What the fuck are you talking about?
But that is exactly, this is where you see the supremacy.
Your people are not being genocided.
But
His people are being genocided.
Yes, but this is where you see the supremacy. It always like the whole position is you talk from the position of power. The power needs to remain in the hands of the people who hold the power right now, and they should allow safety to the other colonial subjects. It is literally, you always talk from the position of power. My people will only be safe. Yes, your people are not the ones being genocided right now. Even the whole fucking movie is not about your people. If it's about your people, it's about your people removing his people. It's not like your people need safety while removing his people. Like, how do you turn this into the self-victimization and the very extremely ethnocentric Jewish supremacist idea that gives you this notion of like, oh yeah, I also need to talk about my safety while the safety of my people who are literally in the movie removing his people from their land. How does this work? I do not know. Crazy. Now you got me angry. Fuck you, Yuval.
God, you're really spitting fire. Oh my God.
This pissed me off so bad. Oh my God. Khalas.
Yeah, I already have.
This is, we have a light that turns on its own. It's just, it's off vibes. The light.
It's reacting to vibes.
Yeah.
No, but this really is, it's so infuriating because, as I said, it is the textbook case of normalization, which at its core is really sick and really dangerous, and often more dangerous than the flat out Zionism that is not in disguise. Because again, the Oscars only allowed him on stage because he didn't threaten any narratives. He defanged the Palestinian. He made him the perfect victim. And look, oh, we're holding hands. And he could never be any threat to the ruling class, the ruling order, the supremacist group in this settler colonial ethno-state. Because look, we're friends. And because ultimately you see how much power he has in that setting.
Dynamic, yeah.
So I think that's important. Our distinguishing what is like successful about this, if you want to use that word, in this moment. And it is not that the Oscars will bring global attention to Palestine, or that speech, or even really that movie. I haven't seen the movie, and and that's not really my place to comment on it. It is about the plight and the suffering of a Palestinian in occupied Palestine. So, to the degree that the movie spreads, we need to talk about those things. But this will not be a success of it having been platformed at the Oscars in the framework of liberal Zionism and normalization.
Yeah.
It's rather the other way around in terms of cause and effect, where it is a result of the movement that has built up to this point where even ruling class institutions, heavily Zionist ones, are unable to ignore the issue of Palestine, which is a success.
Yeah. And I think we mentioned this before. We said we will have, because of the mass movement, because of what people are doing on the streets, and because of the resistance, because of the fight that they're putting up, we will have representation. And we also said representation will not bring us liberation. And we have seen the weak-ass normalizing representation that will not bring us liberation, that will not center our voices, that will only allow us to speak if our hand is being held by a Jew. Which, you see, this is, okay, the different dynamics now, you might be saying, oh my God, the hypocrisy. They are also both doing that, except...
I'm not holding your hand.
Under the camera.
You can't see it.
You can't
I'm
see it.
I'm hitting him under the table whenever he says something he's not allowed to say.
She's like, oh yeah, no, don't say resistance. No, this is the thing, how our fates are not intertwined. My fate is being dictated by the ethno-supremacist state that you are representing, and you are equating the boomerang effect that this ethno-state is suffering due to the oppression of the decade-long oppression. You're equating the boomerang effect to the oppression itself, and this is not just normalization. This is how this is an attempt, in my opinion, this is an attempt to take the air out of the entire movement and just let it have a little bit of a vent to release all the pressure that has built up throughout this one and a half years, by thinking, okay, now we have reached the highest level of movie making. We are now in the Oscars, while at the same time, during these Oscars, the lives and the security of the ethno-supremacists in the state that they have created on our lands is prioritized over the actual content of the movie itself. And this, it's very Jewish supremacist. I'm sorry, it is.
And this is, I mean, you talked about taking the air out of the movement. This is literally like, is this from Marx or Rosa Luxemburg, or like it's just part of that, you know, whole not camp, but like tradition, like school of thought around the role of concessions by the ruling class and ruling class institutions in order to hinder movements, which was something that we talked about a lot when Norway recognized Palestine as a state, and part of the movement reacted with like, oh, this is a great success. And again, it was exactly the same thing as the Oscars. It was not a success that they did that. It was a symptom of how big the movement had gotten, and the fact that they wanted to concede something that was totally symbolic and made absolutely no difference. It's only Oslo again, and it's literally Oslo because it's Norway, intended to make them feel like they had some success and to let up a little bit. And I think people did let up a bit. But I have to say they're pressing on the gas now. Respect to my comrades in Oslo. But yeah, this is the point that we're at, where it is a global conference. Okay, but I want to go back to the point that you brought up, because this is a really good point, and it's just interesting. And we've talked about this in some ways, but us doing this together and the dynamic here. I don't know. I want to talk about that. That's kind of exciting. It's interesting. Let's talk about it. Yeah. I mean, we are friends and comrades, and we adore each other. So we wanted to do this because we're both heavily involved in the movement, and it felt important, and it also felt like something that we could take advantage of. Like I have this stupid Instagram platform, and Karam is very well known in like a bunch of different circles, and we're both very committed, and we have a lot of like shared passion and energy and righteous rage. At the same time, this is something that you see, and it's something that you see weaponized very often. You have the Palestinian, and then you have the Jews like sitting next to them, and I think we're aware of this. We're just very intentionally doing something different.
Yeah, and I also want to say, so in general, as a Jewish person, you have more privileges here in general here, and also in Palestine. But yani, but yeah, so
come on, they wouldn't let me into Palestine.
They would not. I don't think they would. But yani, so. And also, like, I also acknowledge my own privilege of being extremely white passing. Like, I can be a Jürgen for all you guys care. Maybe not a Jürgen, but yani, somewhere on the spectrum between like Jürgen and Karam. And it's also a privilege. And both of these things are things we would like to use for the movement. We would like to use for Palestine. Amy Césaire says, like, if I can be anything, then let me just be your voice. And he's talking about his land. And this is what this platform, what Exchange is supposed to do. And we have some awesome guests. I don't know if you guys, you can go back and watch like episodes with actual interesting people. Maybe if you don't want to listen to us just talk. Yeah.
No, we have some great people. But look, I think this is also, it comes down to also the way in which we organize together and do this together, which is something I'm learning a lot from my truly principled anti-Zionist comrades, who there are very few of, I have to say, but I've been lucky enough to find them in the US and the UK, mainly, as well as France, Spain, etc., with this group that I organize with. And part of their whole philosophy and orientation in the movement is centering the Palestinian liberation struggle, which requires supporting the resistance. It also is about taking the lead from Palestinian organizations, Palestinian organizers, and not inserting yourself into places for self-reverent reasons, which you do see with these types of liberal Zionist organizations like JVP, but rather acting as a partner and standing alongside and behind your Palestinian comrades. And like you've met these people. Like I think they live that in a really powerful way. And another thing that I really love about like this and the way that we work together is I don't know that we've talked about it on here, but our promise to keep each other accountable and humble.
Yeah, to keep each other in check. This is the whole point of this is a partnership that that pushes us towards liberation. Inshallah, I do not have the illusion that a stream will liberate Palestine. I think both of us did not want to just sit around and do nothing. And I think we are both able to talk. Maybe today is the exception. You can ignore the last 30 seconds of me being silent. But yeah, we can both use our voices and we can both talk and also talk shit about politicians. We talked about Olaf Scholz's bald head, a thumb-looking guy. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so we can use this and maybe also sometimes try to be funny, mostly fail, but it's the attempt that counts. So
yeah, mostly just boomer-ang around the stream.
Yeah. Boomer-anger.
Yeah.
And boomer humor as well.
Yeah, the Hamza, the two, and the boomer-ang. I'm learning Arabic.
Yeah.
I think I had one more thing that I wanted to say, but I can't.
Yeah, Ramadan.
Yeah, okay, that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Okay, I can't remember. Maybe you want to say a few words on that?
Yeah, so as we all hopefully know, or maybe if we don't know, we gonna learn today. The ethno-state tends to use holidays in general, Jewish holidays, and also Muslim holidays to expand, and also Christian holidays. Yeah. So whenever there is less attention, they use this as a way to expand their settler colonial project, which we've seen in 2021 when in Ramadan, first off, they attacked people going to the mosque. They literally threw stun grenades and smoke grenades into the mosque, which I'm not Keir Starmer. I don't have knowledge in international law, but I'm pretty sure that is illegal under international law. 90% sure. They also shot people in 2021. They shot Iyad Hallaq, which is a Palestinian with autism who was running away from the security forces. And they also started the 2021 campaign during Ramadan. They bombed Gaza, which, you know, for the people who know that there was no ceasefire before, because people were still being murdered in Gaza and starved in Gaza before the October 7th. So yeah, and in general, just Ramadan, people are already fasting and they're trying to get closer to God. And what the ethno-state decides to do is to, for example, right now, completely cut them off from food and water, which, I mean, it is such a sadistic, tormented way of thinking. And yeah, but I mean, let's argue about the definition of fascism and if it's fascist or not, you know? That's where we should be focusing our attention.
Mic drop.
Yeah. I actually dropped the mic today.
Oh my God. Well, you were preparing for that moment. Yeah, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think we're at a point where, again, a lot of us know these things, and we have armed ourselves with so much information and so many truths. And we're at the point where it is our responsibility to push ourselves to expand our analysis and line of thinking further, to include, these things like normalization, creating the perfect victim, and seeing that and calling it out in our spaces, because that's where it starts, right? Like, our community spaces are the places that we can practice accountability and tenderness and accountability. Obviously, holding your comrades accountable is an act of love. And I'm saying all of this because I literally just want to plug Muhammad al-Kurd's book again, because it has changed my entire, the whole mental structure I have around politics entirely. It is so powerful. And once you become aware of these structures of dehumanization, of creating appealing and compelling and palatable victims, you really start seeing it everywhere. And I think this is going to become our next task as the movement, is to drive forward these narratives and hold people accountable to it, and say to people who are now plugging that we should all be anti-fascist in the US because now it's in the US and it doesn't matter what happens in Palestine. No, that was what I wanted to do, is I wanted to read from my other comrade what they wrote in response to someone saying it doesn't matter whether you agree with Mahmoud Khalil's stance on Israel and Palestine. And Messi, shout out Messi, wrote, apparently you need to hear this. It is relevant, because if your followers don't believe apartheid Israel is fascism, they're already hardcore fascists, honey. You can't fight fascism at home in isolation from our fascist foreign policy. By not taking a hard stance on genocide, you, my good sir, are also fascist.
Yeah.
Stop pandering to people who have already shown you they're selective of who deserves a life of safety, dignity, respect, and opportunity. And I think this is our next, if I had to point at something, this is what we are focusing on in the stream, is pushing these narratives, not allowing ourselves to become complacent, because now we're starting to see some progress.
Yeah.
The work is not done, and it's not going to be done until Palestine is free.
Yeah. Thank you. So, allyship and stuff. I seriously advise. I mean, we did talk about.
We talked about it. Yeah.
We did talk. So be good allies. Hold your comrades accountable. Know that the work is not done. The small victories that we have are small victories that we fought for, and that the resistance also fought for. We will never accept fighting. For me, I will never accept fighting fascism here, while at the same time supporting fascism and genocide against my people. Anyone who thinks that this is an acceptable position will is not only not going to be a victim of fascism, is literally perpetrating fascism and normalizing fascist rhetoric in our society. So that's a no-no. And I think we can all continue our struggle together in this community, hold each other accountable, and I think, as always, free Palestine.
Glory to the resistance.